Today was one of those days where the contradictions of this country punched me right in the chest. On one side, I saw people marching, thousands, even millions of Americans filling the streets for No King's Day. They weren't violent. They weren't breaking windows. They were demanding freedom from fascism, from propaganda, from a man who wants to be king. And they did it peacefully, and it was beautiful. But then meanwhile, we had Trump, who was off playing emperor with his sad little military parade at Washington, D.C. And from what I saw, he was near empty. And yet, here comes the usual suspects on the far right saying it was the biggest crowd ever, because lying is all they got left. But the celebration turned into a heartbreak really fast. In early mornings in Minnesota, two Democratic lawmakers were targeted in what can only be described, and it is, a politically motivated assassination. There were two targeted. It was State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, who were both shot and killed. The other one who was shot, Senator John Hoffman, and his wife were also attacked. They're in critical condition, but they're likely to survive. And the suspect technically still free at the time of this recording, which is on Saturday. A man with a fake police uniform and a list of progressive leaders to kill. This is terrorism. It's plain and simple, and don't let anyone, especially on the right, spin it as anything else. And let's not play dumb about it either. This is the climate Trump wants. He has spent years training his base to see political opponents as enemies, not fellow Americans. So when something like this happens, he'll issue a half-hearted thoughts and prayers while secretly loving the chaos. Don't forget, his silence always screams the loudest. And then we have, even before that, Fort Bragg. Trump using soldiers as props, dragging our military into his political show like they're part of his campaign. And again, I say this thousands of times, I'm a Marine veteran and I am ashamed. The military I served in was supposed to uphold the Constitution, not clap like trained SEALs at a wannabe dictator. Every soldier and officer who stood there and allowed it should be reprimanded. Period. And I want to say something that a lot of folks won't, especially people who never worn a uniform. Right-wing ideology runs deep in the military, and I saw it firsthand. I served for guys who came from tiny towns, dirt poor, barely graduated high school, and for a lot of them, it was the first time they've been around anyone who didn't look like them, didn't talk like them, didn't pray like them. I remember how some of them treated Black Marines like they didn't belong, like they had something to prove that no one else did. And I'll never forget this. And this was later on in my career. We had a fellow Marine who she converted into Islam. And she was committed, she was brave, and she was very squared away. And once she converted to Islam, then she got hate from her own brothers and sisters in uniform. And it was disgusting. I heard things like, "Oh, she's one of them now," or "Great, she got fooled." And this weren't French comments. This was normal in a lot of the circles. So when I see soldiers or airmen, Marines, and all that stuff, they're standing behind Trump like cult members instead of constitutional protectors, I don't feel surprised. I feel furious because I know how we got here. And unless we start telling the truth about it, about the ideology festering inside the barracks and being rewarded up the chain, we'll keep losing our military to extremism. So again, today this is a kind of like a off the record, as this is what we call this section, off the record, but it's more like a reaction of the latest news for this of the week. I plan on doing these on Sunday, so I'll record these on Saturday, post them on Sunday, and we go from there. But we'll still have our normal schedule of Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays, which is an addition episode. If you like this, please let me know and share these with your friends. So let's get with the episode.
breaking news.
Right now, protesters are gathering in Philadelphia for a day of action against President Trump. Skyforce 10 is live over the city right now for the No Kings protest, where, as you can see, the crowd is shoulder to shoulder walking down the Ben Franklin Parkway. The crowd continues to grow throughout the day. Good morning. I'm NBC 10's Brenna White. We are bringing you special coverage of today's protest. I should say good afternoon, as demonstrators rally against President Trump's policies. Hundreds of people are...
There have been rallies across the country opposing President Trump's agenda on the day of the president's military parade. They cap a week of demonstrations against immigration raids that began in Los Angeles and spread nationwide. Today's events in about 2,000 cities and towns were organized by the No Kings movement, which calls the administration's actions authoritarian. There were rallies near Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in West Palm Beach, Florida. In Boston, where it was raining, in Atlanta, with Proud Boy counter-protesters looking on, and in Philadelphia at the flagship No Kings rally.
Let's start with what gave me hope today. The No Kings March, or the No Kings Day. And this was like over 2,000 protests across the country and other countries. I saw on Twitter and Blue Sky, Instagram, like people, Americans from all across the world were saying no Trump. And let's be real, everybody everybody in the world who's sane hates Trump, and they hate what the United States is right now. Now, the only ones who love the United States are the authoritarians, countries like North Korea, Russia, and all those countries. They love what Trump is. They love it. And Trump loves them. He loves the idea of authoritarian leadership. But anyways, and so this was like kind of like a new American holiday. It's like it wasn't built around barbecues or fake patriotism, but it was around resistance. And around remembrance, around the radical idea that this country doesn't belong to one man or one party. It belongs to all of us. And across the country, cities, suburbs, small towns, people march. Families, students, teachers, veterans, immigrants, standing together with one message. No kings, no crowns, no more lies. And they weren't there for clout. Some probably were, but but they weren't breaking windows. They weren't terrorizing the police like they always claim they are. And they were just using their voice and their bodies to say, we remember January 6th. We remember the Muslim ban. We remember the cages, and we saw what you're doing to all the community and trying to get rid of any immigrant or anybody who looks non-white. And we won't forget what fascism looks like just because it wears a suit and smiles for the camera. It was beautiful and it was powerful. But then just a few miles away, Donald Trump threw himself a sad little birthday cosplay parade in Washington, D.C. They'll twist it saying that it was the 250th Army birthday and all that. Good for them. But this is not normal. A parade like this has never happened. It's like rolling tanks and down the streets of Washington, D.C. $45 million of your taxpayer money went for this little birthday party. It's like there were military trucks, soldiers in uniforms, flag waving like it was the 4th of July rally, instead of what it really was, a dictator dress rehearsal funded by your tax dollars. But here's the best part. It flopped. Empty bleachers, awkward silence. There was tight camera angles because wide shots should have shown the truth. Nobody showed up for this man but his psychopaths. His sycophants. You could hear the echo of his ego bouncing off the Capitol steps, and I loved it every second. But of course, right-wing media tried to sell it as massive show of support, the biggest crowd in years. Yeah, and I'm the king of England. Let's be real. We're living in two Americas. One where people still believe in democracy enough to show up for it, and the other one where the grown orange orangutan throws a tantrum because not enough people sang happy birthday to their wannabe king. I mean, but but I want to keep it real at this point. Like this was like my internal thought, and this is the part that kind of hurts to say. The march was beautiful. The message was loud. But personally, I don't think that was enough. I don't think it was enough to get the message across. Like, it felt like a spark, but they're not a fire. Like, as inspired as today was, I think it fell short. Because I was connected all day. All these protests lasted about maybe 2 hours. It was just a little flash. And the people who actually have the power to do something, they're still playing games. Like, a lot of these Democrats will go and say, we support you, and then they will just go back and do the opposite. Same thing with Republicans, who allegedly are anti-Trump. I don't believe them. So Republicans, they're not just complicit, they're cult followers at this point. And again, the Democrats, they're not the heroes. They're cowards, as you've seen. There's a few that are fighting back, but majority of them are cowards. They issue statements, they host fundraisers, they tweet stuff like, and they go to all these news networks and go, this is not normal. But then they go and vote and confirm another extremist judge or whatever, or a watered down version of civil rights bill, or to remove rights. So they act like this is just another election cycle, while the rest of us are kind of screaming that democracy is hanging by a thread. So yeah, I would say celebrate today. Be proud of what we did, but don't let the good vibes distract you from the truth. This is far from over. Now, until lawmakers start treating this like an emergency, it is not a PR opportunity, we're still losing. We can't just march for a few hours and call it a movement. Remember the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020? There was a little change for like a few, like some football teams and professional teams changed their names. But we're back to where it was before. Nowadays, because of this, again, I don't know what other, the Jimmy Kimmel said it best. It was like, useless as Grant. Love that. If he's still in power, see how all these the DEI laws kind of went back. All the diversity stuff, it's gone back. And what are the Democrats doing? Well, I cannot believe he did it. Are you serious? Like, guys, he's been like, what are you gonna do to get this man out of office? So, but here's what we need to do. We need to stop thinking that just the march on a Saturday is going to help. You have to be relentless on pressuring your Congress and senators. Constant noise, non-stop accountability. And that starts with, you have to flood their inboxes. Email them as much as you can. Blow up their voicemails. The amount of times I call my congressman and my senator, I already know their secretaries by name. And they're mad at me for calling every time. Then send letters, emails, DMs, show up to their town halls, call them out publicly, make them uncomfortable in their complicity. Tell your senators, your reps, your school boards, your city councils, like, we were in the streets today and tomorrow, and we'll be at your door. Like, let me rephrase that. Not their house. We'll be in the town halls. Like, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about extremism. We're talking about like getting them to actually do the will of the people. It's like, because we're done begging, we're done waiting, and we're done pretending this country is fine. It's not fine, but it's ours. So again, no kings, no crowns, no cover. Just us holding the line one day longer than they thought we could. Now let's move on to our next segment.
But I'm going to now take you to the United States, where we have some breaking news. A politician in the U.S. state of Minnesota has been killed. Another has been injured after they were both shot in their separate homes. State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband have been killed, while State Senator John Hoffman and his wife are recovering after surgery. Now, police are searching for the suspect who escaped after a shootout with officers. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said it was an act of political violence.
Okay, so now let's shift focus to something very dark. Because under the hope and unity we saw today during the No King's Day marches, something horrifying is happening in America. And we need to talk about it with the seriousness it demands. Because while we were in the streets marching for democracy, another kind of America made itself known. The one where political violence is no longer shocking. It's just expected. And this morning, June 14, 2025, it happened again in Minnesota. So this is what we know so far. And this is from Saturday night when I'm recording this. So at around 3:35 a.m., a man dressed as a police officer forced his way into the home of Representative Melissa Hortman, a longtime Minnesota lawmaker and former Speaker of the House, Minnesota House. He shot and killed both her and her husband, Mark, while their children slept upstairs. Melissa was 55, Mark was 56. And they were parents, public servants, and they're gone now. Just minutes earlier, in a nearby suburb, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, were ambushed outside their home in Champlin. They survived, barely. Both are in critical condition following the emergency surgery. And this wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This wasn't a random act of violence. Authorities quickly identified the shooter, Vance Luther Bolter, a 57-year-old private security executive. He was a former state board appointee, and here's the kicker, a former Christian missionary who worked overseas and served briefly under a Democratic governor. Inside his vehicle, police found multiple AK-style assault rifles, a fake police credentials and uniforms, a detailed manifesto, a No King's Day protest flyers, which really it looked more like crayon. It wasn't really flyers, and a kill list with over 70 names on it, including Governor Tim Walz, Representative Ilhan Omar, and several abortion providers and Black and Jewish community leaders. This was a politically motivated act of terrorism. And Bolter isn't just a murderer. He's a symbol of a country that is actively devouring itself with hate. And he's still out there. The FBI has issued a $50,000 reward in a multi-state manhunt is underway. So let's be clear, this man wasn't living in the shadows. He held a leadership role in Twin Cities-based private security firm. He was once appointed to a state oversight board during a bipartisan police reform effort. So this has nothing to do that he was a Democrat and Tim Walz knew this. Like, no, it was bipartisan. Nothing to do with anything. It was a bipartisan reform for police. And he went on multiple mission trips to Kenya and Guatemala. He volunteered at a mega church. He spoke at a Rotary clubs. This was someone who moved in political and professional circles, who wore a clean shirt, shook hands with mayors, and probably say things like thoughts and prayers whenever there was a tragedy on the news. He was a perfect camouflage for extremism. Respectable, quiet, religious, until he snapped. Or maybe he didn't snap, maybe he planned it for years. And now some of the very people he once worked alongside are dead or hospitalized. This was not mental illness. This was radicalization. This was a man who has been marinated in right-wing propaganda. Stories about stolen elections, liberal elites, immigrants replacing quote-unquote real Americans, abortions as murder, Black Lives Matter as a threat, and the media as the enemy. All of it. We've heard it for years. And the conspiracies are already out there. As soon as they found out who this man was, Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, you name it, they were already getting their stuff ready. And you thought the right wing might take a second to reflect. No. The conspiracy machine didn't even wait for the bodies to be identified. It jumped into action before the sun came up. On X, formerly Twitter, Colin Rugg suggested the killings were quote-unquote connected to Hortman's recent vote to expand Minnesota care to undocumented residents, as if that justifies anything. Mike Cernovich, who made a career out of inventing lies, went even darker. He wrote, and I quote, "Did Tim Walz have her executed to send a message?" That's serious. This is not satire. This is not speculation. This is flat out accusations with no evidence. And of course, we have the other man-child, Elon Musk. He had to chime in, blaming the far left extremism, despite Bolter's hit list being filled with Democratic targets and his manifesto echoing right-wing talking points. It's textbook. Project the violence onto your enemies, distract from the facts, weaponize the chaos for your own political narrative. We saw this after January 6th. We saw it with the Paul Pelosi attack. Like a Trump supporter or right-wing went and tried to hammer Nancy Pelosi's husband in their house, and the man in their head, and now we're seeing it again. And the longer we let this garbage spread, the more violence it inspires. We have to call this what it is. This is fascism, dress it in red, white, and blue. This is political violence. This is not a glitch in the system, but it's the system itself. It's no longer shocking for armed men to show up at politicians' houses. It's no longer rare for political figures to be assassinated or maimed. It's no longer extreme to hear elected officials say things like, "Maybe it's time for war." We're just numb. We are being trained to accept violence as a normal outcome of political disagreement. And it's working. This is what Trump wants. This is what he wants. That's why he can create violence, and then he can swoop in and say, "I'm the only one that can fix it." That's what he wants. And people still... it just gets on my nerves how still in my town that is technically very left-wing, I still hear it from people saying, "Well, these liberals." I'm like, how stupid can you get? The evidence is right in front of you. So think about this. A man with a fake badge and a military-grade weapons ambush lawmakers in their own homes, and he's still out there, still armed, it's still a threat. And meanwhile, our leaders, Trump issues a bland condemnation with his supporters post laughing emojis. It took him almost 3 hours to say something. That was the bare minimum. When Trump was almost assassinated, what did Joe Biden do? As soon as that happened, he called Donald Trump, tried to be like, "Dude, what? Are you okay? This is not like he cared for Trump." Yeah. So Republicans are holding press conference about Democrats politicizing the tragedy. Democrats, they are lowering flags and tweeting condolences. That's enough. But it's not enough. We're marching while the people in charge are kneeling. We're screaming while they whisper. We're bleeding while they write speeches. This is part where I usually offer a pat forward. But tonight, I need to offer something else. A warning. We are past the point of symbolism. We need accountability. We need action. We need to dismantle the political culture that breeds this violence. Again, so here's what you can do. Call your representative, every single one of them. Flood their inboxes. Blow up their voicemails. Tell them you demand protection, justice, and legislation that confronts the political terrorism head on. Tell them that tweets and condolences won't bring back Melissa Hortman and her husband. That cowardice will not stop bullets. This silence is complicit. Because the next time this happens, it will happen again. It might not be in Minnesota. It might be in your district, in your neighborhood, at your front door. Again, this is what he wants. This is what the right-wing media wants. They want violence because then they can start swooping in, saying that now we have to take over and screw the Constitution. Again, that's my reaction to this. Let's go to our next section.
I certainly don't incite violence.
Knock the crap out of him. Like to punch him in the face.
I don't condone violence, and I don't talk about violence.
I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that.
I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will.
Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily. We become weak. We become weak. And you know what? The audience swung back. And I thought it was very, very appropriate. The audience hit back. And that's what we need a little bit more of now. Part of the problem and part of the reason it takes so long is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore, right? I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been out there fighting, folks. I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that.
Do you plan on paying for the legal fees of this older gentleman in North Carolina who sucker punched the protester?
From what I understand, he was sticking a certain finger up in the air. And that is a terrible thing to do in front of somebody that, frankly, wants to see America made great again.
It's possible you could help him with legal fees if this man needs it.
I've actually instructed my people to look into it, yes.
Okay, so I took a little breather after that because that got me a little fired up. But that kind of brought to my attention that I should be talking about the man who is at the center of this firestorm. The round orange orangutan, Farty Mike Farterson, the guy who could not remember what he's doing. Yes, Donald J. Trump. Because no matter how many official statements he releases, no matter how many times he mutters the word horrific, we know what he really stands for. So like when the news broke of the Minnesota assassination, Trump issue a carefully crafted sterile statement. This is horrific violence. This will not be tolerated. We will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. It sounds presidential, right? Sure. But if you forget who we're talking about, this is the same man who, one, called January 6th insurrectionists, hostages, and patriots, and pardoned them too. Said there were, and then he also said there was fine people on both sides after Nazis marched in Charlottesville and killed Heather Heyer. And then posted during protests over George Floyd's murder, he said, and this is not, like, you think I'm making this up? Well, if you remember, this is what he said on Twitter. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Like a phrase so openly violent that even Twitter flagged it for glorifying violence. And the problem is that the people who love his rhetoric, the ones who are, like, at this point, like, after he said that should have been like, man, impeach him. That is not presidential. But no, his fans were chanting this stuff. They were instigating every time there was a Black Lives Matter protest. They were trying to do this. And the worst part is that you see this in the police too. The police were believing this stuff, that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Now, and then said on the campaign trail that he will pay the legal fees of anyone who assaulted protesters. Like, how is this normal? And he mocked Paul Pelosi after the man beat him with a hammer in a politically motivated home invasion. Trump called it a weird story, and right-wing media followed his lead by making it a meme. So no, I don't care what his press release says. His legacy is not about condemnation, it's about incitement. Like the amount of stuff he's... And then just recently, when the LA protests against ICE started, he wanted to come with another phrase. When the spitting starts, the hitting starts. Like, he's doing the same thing just 5 years later. And people who still support him, this is the point that you are just okay with being a Nazi. Okay, so my other part of this is that this type of violence or this kind of rhetoric, even a sheriff or a police chief in Florida, he said that if a protester does something that they have to collect their body bags, like because they're going to be dead. Like that's a police chief saying this about peaceful protesters. Like, this is not normal. This is not what it should be. This is what a dictatorship does. This is what countries that have no law and order are doing. But I guess we're okay with this now because, oh, Donald Trump. Oh, I don't like the. And this is what they all say. But anyways, I don't like what the liberals are doing. Anyways, and then Donald Trump didn't just inspire the January 6th insurrection. The coup, he lit the fuse. He told the mob to fight like hell. He pointed them toward the Capitol, and then he was sat back for 187 minutes. So 3 hours and 7 minutes for some of you. Watching it unfold, refusing to call off the attack until the damage was done. Like, for real, like, he didn't, and then now what he's doing, he didn't call the National Guard there. He didn't do anything. He let it happen. And people still voted for this maniac. And the worst part is that when the protesters in LA, it was literally the tiniest of a protest section. It was maybe 2 blocks is what I've been hearing or I've been seeing. It was a little section, and this man sent almost 2,000 National Guards without the permission of the governor. He federalized the National Guard, and then he said, screw your protest, I'm going to activate the National Guard. And then he activated 700 active duty Marines. To do what? So anyways, so what happens after he does all this stuff? He pardoned his allies. He floated pardons for rioters and said he gave them justice if reelected. He dismantled anti-extremism programs under DHS. He shut down the Countering Violent Extremism Task Force and slashed funding for community threat monitoring. He repeatedly refused to denounce the Proud Boys, instead saying, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by on national TV on a freaking presidential debate. And that became a rallying cry for armed militias. And then he invited Kyle Rittenhouse to Mar-a-Lago and called him a hero. He praised law enforcement who murdered Michael every time Michael Reynolds, an anti-fascist activist, saying, this is the way it has to be. So basically celebrating extrajudicial executions. This is so obvious, but never mind. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, from 2022 to 2024, every political motivated murder in the US was committed by right-wing extremism. Like every single one. And when researchers mapped the search into political killings, do you know what overlaps perfectly? Trump's rhetoric, his rallies, his dismantling of federal counter-extremism protections, and his normalization of dehumanizing language. A joint report from the Washington Post and Politico put it plainly. It's like we've entered a dangerous era where political speech has been weaponized, and those weapons are now being used. And let's not pretend this is accidental. These aren't gaffes. This is a strategy, which is crazy to say out loud that Trump has a strategy. It's like, and then Trump doesn't walk into a room and shouts, "Go kill Democrats." He walks in and says, "They're destroying your country. They want to replace you. They're coming for your children. They're the enemy of the people." I mean, 2016, the Mexicans are not bringing their best, the rapists, and all that stuff. Like, how is that? Like, come on. And this is not strength. This is a coward. So Donald Trump isn't brave. He dodged the draft. He had his poor little daddy saying that he needs to avoid the Vietnam War because he has bone spurs on his feet. Captain Bone Spurs is what he is, and he is he's a coward is what he is, and he isn't misunderstood. He isn't some rogue outsider who says what he feels. He's a coward who incites from behind a podium and then hides behind lawyers when the bodies hit the floor. He encourages violence with winks and dog whistles. He backs extremism. He pardons and praises extremists. And when the consequences explode, he sends a 2-sentence statement to say, "Not my fault." That's not strength. That's not leadership. That's a moral bankruptcy in a red tie. So where do we go? Like, if we're serious about protecting democracy, if No King's Day is going to be more than just a hashtag, then we need to name the threat out loud. Donald Trump is complicit in political violence. His words have real-world consequences. His movement has become a radicalizing force. So here's what needs to happen. Our leaders need to stop tiptoeing and start telling the truth. If your opponent supports fascism, then you have to say it. Congress must move forward with banning those who incite violence from holding office. Yes, the 14th Amendment applies here. The media must stop both sides citing this crisis. Trump isn't just polarizing, he's dangerous. I hate this so much about the ABC, CNN. They're going like, but what is the other? Like, don't be cowards. Report what the facts are. The facts are Trump is a menace. And we, the people, have to stop waiting for justice from institutions that have failed us. Like, Donald Trump is not just an ex-president and current president. He's like the ex who refuses to leave, refuses to grow up, and refuses to stop being toxic. He mocks, he divides, he disappears, and he disappears when it's time to clean up the mess. He didn't build a wall, but he did build a mob. And unless the country wakes up, that mob is going to burn the rest of democracy to the ground. It's like, we cannot fight fascism with politeness or stronger worded letters. Chuck Schumer, another coward. And we cannot be authoritarian with thoughts and prayers. Like, this ends only when he's held accountable by the courts, by Congress, and by us. They won't stop until that man's behind bars.
New tonight, no fat soldiers, no political opposition to the president. Those were the directions to these soldiers sitting behind the president in the bleachers during his visit to Fort Bragg on Tuesday. This is according to internal 82nd Airborne Communications. This story was first reported by military.com. WR's Carly Haynes is live in Raleigh. Carly, yesterday's event was a celebration of the Army's 250th birthday, so to speak, or anniversary, but it was not without controversy.
Right. The celebration happened nearly 24 hours ago right here in North Carolina. But what happened there reached members of the military all over the country, and not all of them were celebrating what they witnessed. It looks like a campaign event, but this is an official presidential visit to Fort Bragg to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army.
The Army historically has bent over backwards to maintain an apolitical image.
Steve Bainan is a national security correspondent for military.com. This is what led his sources, ranging from Pentagon officials to junior soldiers, to raise the alarm.
The way some of these troops behave would likely violate a whole host of Defense Department regulations, which effectively prohibit partisan activity in uniform. And that is what was so shocking about this event in particular.
Bainan looked into who was chosen to sit behind the president. Internal communication within the 82nd Airborne Division outlined specific directives. Those include soldiers sitting in the bleachers are to be fit and not look fat. And soldiers with political views in opposition who don't want to be there need to get swapped out.
Well, but even went a step further. There was a Trump merchandise shop. This whole like pop-up shop, it's called Campaign 365, that was selling T-shirts and tchotchkes and all sorts of memorabilia.
All right, so I've been going on, and there's a lot that happened this week. Man, this week felt like a year of stuff. But here's something that really, another part that hit me hard. Not just as a U.S. citizen, but as a veteran. Because what happened at Fort Bragg, if you know what's going on, Donald Trump decided to go to Fort Bragg and do a campaign rally speech to soldiers. So having the president come to Army, Navy, Marine Corps bases is not out of the norm. But what he did is what is it's not what a president should be doing. Usually presidents, real presidents, not this whatever we have, will say stuff like to praise the whatever service they're talking to and say that they're doing it for us and that they're brave for serving the country, that he appreciates everything they do, blah blah blah, all that stuff, typical stuff. But what happened at Fort Bragg on Thursday, which Fort Bragg is one of the most sacred and historic army installations in the country, it wasn't patriotism. Like, it was straight up propaganda. It was authoritarian cosplay and uniform. Like, Donald Trump turned Fort Bragg into a stage. Not for the nation, not for the troops, but for himself. Shocking. For his ego, for his campaign, for his brand. What did he say? Let's start with the quotes, because you won't believe this that came out of his mouth of a president standing on an active U.S. military base. He said, and I quote, "In Los Angeles, the governor of California, they paid troublemakers. It's a foreign invasion. We will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again." Like, liberate? That's not presidential rhetoric. That's a language of a warlord. Someone who thinks American cities are enemy territory and deserters are insurgents. And then, he wasn't done. Like, if there are any protesters that want to come out, they're gonna be met with very heavy force. Okay, so that's a direct threat of violence against American citizens from a man speaking in front of active duty soldiers in uniform. Then he did what he always does. He mocked the woke garbage, blamed immigrants, and attacked the media. And the worst part, the soldiers were cheering because they were, I don't want to say they were told to, but because they believe that. Like, he mocked former President Biden, and they were booing Biden. He called Gavin Newsom Gavin Newscum. Like the man has no shame, and we know this. Like, this wasn't a spontaneous appearance. It wasn't some bipartisan armed forces appreciation tour. It was a carefully orchestrated political stunt. According to leaked memos and multiple reports, troops were screened for political reliability. You had to be a Trump supporter to be able to do this. Soldiers were instructed not to show any dissent or negative body language. Freedom of speech, huh? One internal email even noted, "No large body soldiers in frame." Yes, you heard that right. No fat soldiers. Because apparently fascism has a fitness standard now. This is coming from Trump. Like, seriously, guys. But it gets worse. Trump merchandise was being sold on base. MAGA hats, flags, 2024 shirts, and Trump army gear right next to military fatigues and Humvees. And that's not a celebration, that's a violation. Under the Department of Defense Directive 1344 or 1344.10, so 1344.10, political campaign materials and merchandise cannot be distributed or sold on military installations. That includes campaign hats, that includes shirts, that includes selling political identity as patriotism. And yet, at Fort Bragg, it happened in plain sight. I'm just good. It's like, I wore the uniform, I trained for combat, I stood watching during the sun and the cold, and I saw stuff I was standing next to people that I appreciate more for what they did, and then I come out, and every time I tell this to anybody who I meet and they find out I'm a veteran or something like that, they say thank you for your service. I'm not ashamed of my experience, but at the same time, I don't feel like I earned that. I was honorably discharged. I did my time of service. I would know that. It's just, personally, I don't feel like because there were soldiers, Marines, my fellow who actually deserved that more than I did. So I cringe every time someone says that. And I never did it for this kind of stuff. I never did for politicians. Like, I did this for the Constitution. I did it for my brothers and sisters in uniform. I did it for my country that was supposed to be better than this. So to see soldiers used as stage props for a man who dodged the draft, mocked POWs, stole money from the veterans, and now uses our troops to feed his cult of personality, like, this is beyond. Like, I'm not just angry, like, I'm not surprised, but I'm ashamed. Because now everybody who thinks I'm a veteran will act this way. Again, this is part of the dictator's guidebook. Surround yourself with military force to project control. Frame dissent as enemy action, like a foreign invasion. Sell your brand with nationalism, hats, banners, slogans, salutes. Silence criticism through intimidation and fear. And make the military look like your personal army. This is what we've seen in Russia, Turkey, Venezuela, and now Fort Bragg, United States of America. 2025. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the experts. As much as some people don't want to listen to the experts anymore because I do my own research crap. Like, civil military analysts have been sounding the alarm for years. Multiple retired generals and defense officials have warned that Trump's rhetoric and actions are eroding the foundational separation between military service and political power. The moment we allow the armed forces to be used as campaign props, we have lost the very line that keeps us from authoritarian collapse. And that's the other part. Like, I understand, I mentioned this, that military service, especially in the enlisted side, they're very Republican for some reason. And I never understood this. And I think it's because they were fed this idea that Republicans only care about the military while Democrats are trying to destroy us. But what in reality is happening is that the Republican Party uses the military as campaign stuff, while the Democrats, they treat us like actual Americans, and they're trying to not just cut the military budget, but they're trying to use the budget more wisely. They're trying to actually, like, once you get out of the military, you actually have, if you have a disability, you can actually be treated for life for that disability. And the Republicans said, nah, I don't care about your disability. Like, F off, leave me. Thanks for your vote. So maybe it's just lack of education. Propaganda works anyway. And where's the response from the leadership? The Pentagon is silent. Of course it is. Pig Headsack loves this. He's a puppet. Then Fort Bragg Command, silent. The Joint Chiefs, nothing. Like, not even a statement, not even a press release clarifying that this wasn't an official policy. This is not professionalism. That was cowardice. That's enabling, because silence is the face of politicization, is consent. And the longer this continues, the more we normalize the betrayal. It's what we're gonna do. And the problem is that I still believe this. Anybody who was behind that before Trump cheering for the pretty much the lack of free press and mocking Joe Biden and all that stuff, like, I don't care what your political views are. When you're in uniform, that your oath is to the Constitution, not to Trump, not to Biden, not to Obama, and all so on and so on. So all those soldiers that were saying boo to all these and then cheering for violence against protesters, you should be ashamed and you should be reprimanded as much as you can. So let me speak directly now. So I already said this. It's like, we swore an oath to the Constitution, not to a party, not to a man, not to a flag with a name printed on it. Now, anyways, if you see a Trump flag and the American flag with Trump, that's already a defamation of the flag. The oath means something, and if it doesn't, if we're just standing around letting this happen, then we're already lost. The commanders, that was a breach. Investigate it. Discipline those who violated protocol. Protect your troops from being used as pawns in someone else's power game. To the Pentagon, reinforce that wall, the separation of the troops and the political parties. Speak out. You established the norms that were meant to keep this country from falling off the edge. And to everyone else, don't stay quiet. Don't pretend this is politics as usual. Because when the military becomes a campaign rally, we're not a democracy anymore. Let's go to our last segment and reaction for the day.
Be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester who wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
When you took your oath, did you swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
So I find it laughable. You don't behave like someone who takes that oath seriously. And let me tell you why. We don't live in a dictatorship or a monarchy. Trump's will is not the guiding doctrine of this nation, and our country is not a playground for his or your twisted authoritarian fantasies. We are a democracy. We defend the Constitution and we affirm the rule of law. We respect the co-equal branches of government and we uphold our rights, even when we disagree. The foundation of our nation is based on a core set of constitutional rights upon which our prosperity, our pluralism, and our peace depend on it. You, however, have been leading this work for 116 days, and in that time, you have profiled and dehumanized our neighbors. You've betrayed our constitutional commitment to due process. You've deported United States citizens. You've undermined the courts. You've broken the law. You've engaged in corruption, and you've weaponized the immigration system to violate civil rights. As Senator Murphy perfectly stated, your department is out of control, but you're responsible. You have betrayed the sacred fundamentals of your oath. And I believe to my core that you are not fit to hold the office. And I again, to your face, demand your immediate resignation. And I put it and place it on the record for all of us to see.
So maybe you felt like I've gone off the rails. Maybe you don't like this part of my show, or maybe you're here for the deep dives, which if you do, awesome. I appreciate you. I do enjoy doing those deep dives. They're very, the amount of research I have to do for those is amazing because it all correlates of what the country is. Like it's built on very violent and racist and misogynistic views, but we move forward to make it better. So with that, I just want to say that today was a very emotional day for a lot of us, and not just because of what we saw, but because of what it reminded us, that we're living in a moment where hope and horror are crashing into each other in real time. On one hand, we had the No King's Day. People in every corner of this country, from Brooklyn to Tulsa, from Minneapolis to San Diego, standing together. Families, students, veterans, organizers, holding hands, lifting signs, chanting, marching. Not for a paycheck, not for the clout, not because some party told them to, but because they believe deep down that we deserve better. That America doesn't need a king. That power belongs to the people. The silence is surrender. And for a moment, it felt like we were finally starting to wake up. But the reality hit, because then the chants faded. The headlines came. Minnesota, state representative, murder in her home. Husband, murder alongside her. The senator and his wife shot, clinging to life, by a man dressed as a cop carrying an assault rifle and a list of names. And as of right now, he's still out there. A political terrorist on American soil, and we can't even get our elected leaders to call it what it is. You know why? Because calling it what it means admitting that we lost control of this country's moral compass. It means admitting that we've coddled fascism, that we joked about extremism, that we led a movement led by Donald J. Trump, convinced millions of people that violence is just patriotism with better aim. And that's the sickening part, that we allowed this to happen. And like the amount of times I voted against this man, and I told people, my friends, and I asked them, like, why are you voting for this man? And they just spew the obvious talking points, no facts behind it. It's just so sad, and they're lost to it. And I know I have a lot of former Marine friends that I don't talk to anymore because they are dangerous, in my opinion, of their rhetoric, and I'm scared of what they could do. So, and then we have the Fort Bragg situation. It's like I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Like, that it made me sick. Like I've done stuff for the country. I've done my time. The uniform was never meant for this. But what we saw in Fort Bragg is not supposed to be a campaign costume. It's not supposed to be part of the rally. It's supposed to be in something. But instead today it was a prop. A shield for a man who's done more to divide this country than any foreign enemy I've ever we ever trained to fight. And I served because I believe in the ideals, not the image. I didn't serve for tax breaks or college credit or applause. Even though free college was a really good thing at the end, so we got that part. But at the same time, I served because I thought we were fighting for something real: freedom, justice, the Constitution. And I'm an immigrant. I came to the United States. Now, here's the part that people might think: oh, you joined the Marines because you wanted to be a citizen. No. I was already a citizen before I joined the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps because at that time I was very happy with how I was doing in the United States. I had a really good grades. I had the opportunity to do music. I had the opportunity to do as many sports as I wanted, and I wanted to be like, that's part of what I need to do. That I believe that I was supposed to be, this is my paying back for what the country has done for me. But over the years I realized we were sold a sanitized version of patriotism. One that says follow the rules, even when the rules are killing people. Not me personally, I'm just making it's just over. And then one that says support the troops, even when the troops are being used to silence dissent. One that says be proud to serve, but doesn't want to hear about the racism, the misogyny, and the religious bigotry inside those very ranks. Again, I remember Marines who whisper hate about black service members. Not even whisper, saying it out loud. And it's sad that those people were moved up the ranks too, because then they spread the bigotry towards their lower Marines. There's anybody who was an E3 and below. Anyways, and then I remember fellow Marines who converted to Islam and who was instantly treated like an enemy. And at that time, I did not know what I was supposed to do. I reported it, but nothing came out of it. Because back then, I thought that was what you report, but then all you do is shut up and fall in line. Don't rock the boat, because you're going to destroy the mission. But that's how fascism wins. Not with a bang, but with silence, with complicity. With cowards who know better and still choose comfort over courage. Like Trump didn't create this. He exploited it. He gave voice to the quiet part. He gave permission to the people already teetering on the edge. And now we got elected officials being assassinated. We got military bases becoming political stages. And we got judges afraid to rule. Teachers afraid to speak. Journalists afraid to publish. And Americans afraid to walk down the street wearing the wrong hat. This is, by the hat, I don't mean the Make America Great Again hats. I mean something else. I mean, maybe you wearing a hat that supports a Democrat or or something that says proud Hispanic. anything that's not Republican. And this is not democracy, it's the death of it. And no parade, no speech, no God bless America bumper sticker is going to change that. So what do? We have to fight. Not with fists, not with violence, but with truth, with community, with relentless, unapologetic resistance. We show up, we stay loud, we demand more from our so-called leaders, and if they don't deliver, we replace them on the ballot box. We organize, we donate, we knock doors, we protect one another, because we can't count on the system to do it anymore. We march not just to be seen, but to build something that can't be erased by one man's tantrum. And I'm going to keep saying this every time I talk about anything that is criticizing the United States. I don't hate this country. I hate what's been done to it. I hate the lies we were sold and the people still selling them. I hate that truth sounds like a rebellion now. And I hate that too many of our leaders are treating fascism like a scheduling inconvenience instead of the 5-alarm fire that it is. But I also love this place enough to want better. I love the people who showed up today. I love the kids holding cardboard signs saying no kings. I love the old heads marching for the first time in decades. And I love the idea that maybe, just maybe, we're not too late. And that's why we march. Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because we're not finished yet. And to anybody who still says that we're not, that we're we're exaggerating, look what's going on. Like, see what's going on to anybody who looks maybe Hispanic. Have you seen the other parts that a 9-month pregnant woman got arrested and she had to be hospitalized? And she is a U.S. citizen. She was trying to stop ICE from entering her house, private property. No, and they had no warrant. It's just heartbreaking to see people who you think that they want the best for the country, but they really don't. They actually support that kind of rhetoric. And I have cut so many people from my life who did this to America. And you know what's the craziest part? If you think about it, Trump is the worst thing that has happened to the world, and at the same time, the best thing that has happened. And let me clarify this, because Canada was supposed to go right wing for a second, and then as soon as Trump started and became president and everything, they became super liberal out of nowhere. And I love that. I love that. Mexico, same thing. The European Union was like, oh, no. We're gonna stay liberal because that's what we do. Japan, same thing. All these other countries are seeing what Trump is, and they're like, we don't want that. We're gonna go the other way. So why can't we? Like, we see that the rest of the world, the only people that support us are the authoritarians. That should be an alarm to you. But anyways, with that in mind, I appreciate you listening to my stream of thought. And I'm going to do these Sunday episodes now as the off the record. More of a personal anecdote and reaction to what's going on. And I want you to, if you, like I said, if you felt it, please share it. If you're mad, stay mad, and then stay mad. But make sure you go out and vote. And if you're scared, don't be quiet. Start getting connected. Start getting connected with the organizers. Start putting out, how can I help? If you ever decide to run for politics yourself, I mean, Trump can do it. Why can't you? So again, we have no kings, no crowns, no cover. Just the truth and the people who are brave enough to fight for it. I'll see you guys until next time. Stay safe.